It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome back to another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders. Alan, just the two of us today. No third person riding shotgun with us. No Derek, no Nick, just you and I. This feels like, I don't know, actual Steelers season or sometime before the draft. But here we are.
You know what? It's kind of dragging this afternoon, and a little hot and just, I don't know, not much energy. Music, man, every time. It just gets me going. I don't know.
We're back on it.
We're almost 9 months into this thing. Every day.
Yeah.
Still, I hear the music and I'm like, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, you guys can't see it because we're not on the screen yet, but as it's going, we're just right along with the music. Actually, for the first couple months of this show, I remember literally every time it would be the first thing that we talk about was how good the music was. And the comments would always be like, will you guys please shut up about the music? No, it's not going to happen. We're not going to shut up about the music because it's so fantastic. And the voiceover. Once again, shout out to Brandon Rossai.
There you go. Yeah. It's good. It gets me going. It sets the mood. I'm ready now. Let's get into this. We got draft stuff to talk about.
Yeah, there we go. A couple more visits to wrap up the Alan. There's been actually big debate about this calling them what they are. What do you call these 30 visits? Because the top 30s were the thing that people are like, okay, it's not top 30 because you're not bringing in top 30 players. It's not what it is. You get 30 visits, so it should be called 30 visits. Some people just call them pre-draft visits. What do you call them?
On the site, I call them pre-draft visits, but you can call them top 30 visits. They're the top 30 people that the Steelers wanted to talk to that agreed to come to Pittsburgh. In a way, they're a top 30. That doesn't mean they're the top. Come on, we all know what we're talking about here. Sure, you can call them top 30 visits. It's not that different than the combine formals, where there are a limited number of them. I think the big difference is, when you're talking about this now, usually you're bringing, at this point in the calendar, usually you're bringing guys around a second time, right? You're talking to somebody that you've already talked to once before. Whereas the combine formal, a lot of that is spreading yourself around. I feel like these are really honing in on the guys you think are targets. And and the Steelers they brought in Broderick Jones last year. Obviously, they brought in Joey Porter Jr. I don't remember if they brought in Keanu Benton. I would have to look.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, so
it was like him and Gervon Dexter. I had a feeling they were going to draft one of those two because of them visiting.
Yeah. So I think that there's a good case to be made that this is probably the most important signifier of all of the ways that teams can show interest in a prospect.
Okay, well, let's go over who these last few were and then maybe dive into more of the trends of the 30 visits that they had and go over that and try to get an idea. Maybe we can try.
They brought in Darnell Washington last year too, so
yeah,
it was
yeah. What about Herbig and Trice and Spencer Anderson? Spencer Anderson, I didn't even hear of him.
No, really. Guys that late. Usually if you're talking about a pre-draft visit, it's going to be guy fifth round or above most of the time. Very rarely will be a later round guy. So no to Anderson, no to Corey Trice also, but he
was one that just because
they
of medical
did bring in Darius Rush on a pre-draft visit and then ended up getting him off, pulled him off the practice squad.
Yeah. Okay. So anyways, these last couple that we wanted to bring up, there's actually one really interesting one in here. But Penn State, Hunter Nourzad, offensive lineman, and Michigan linebacker Junior Colson, who we had talked about a little bit before. There was some interest at the combine with him. Hunter Nourzad's an interesting one. I really like him as a player. Could he start day one at center? I would feel comfortable about him maybe competing for that job. And I feel like I'm just a broken record because I'll keep saying it. If they had somebody like a Brian Allen on the roster right now, I would feel okay if they decided to wait on center a little bit and he was the guy that they were targeting.
I really like Hunter Nourzad. I think he's an interesting person and an interesting, he played all 5 positions in college. He was a no-star guy, went to Cornell for 2 years, transferred from there to Penn State, immediately became a starter at guard, then moved to center. I think his injury, and he suffered a stress reaction in his leg that he was playing through last year, and then when he went into the combine training after the season, he aggravated it and really wasn't able to do anything. I think it really came at a bad time for him, because I think this is a guy that could have like tested his way into like the end of day 2. I think of the the day 3 center guys who we've talked about, Tanner Bortolini, we've talked about Bo Limmer. I think I like Hunter Nourzad just as much as any of the rest of them. He's bigger guy, 320. I think he could play pretty close to right away. He's an older guy. He's very experienced, played a ton of college football. Again, like maybe I think significantly less upside than the early round guys that we're talking about, but maybe compared to the rest of them, like one of the guys I would be more comfortable playing right away if he had to play like this year. I don't think it would be a disaster. I just think you're giving up a lot of upside compared to even a Zach Frazier, who I don't even think is one of the higher upside guys. It's certainly compared to a Van Pran or Powers Johnson or Graham Barton. I think you're losing a lot. But like, could Hunter Nourzad start and be at least as good as Mason Cole? Yeah, probably. Like, yeah, I don't think that's crazy. Also, Hunter Nourzad is Iranian and Iranian, probably. I don't know. Not my area of expertise, but birthplaces of obscure Pittsburgh Steelers is my area of expertise. And he would be the second Iranian Steelers offensive lineman, Shar Pordanish, from the 1990 and 2000s teams, played tackle, was born in Tehran, Iran, back in the 70s. So the more you know, Steelers have
that is
definitely
a player that has been
of Iranian offensive linemen.
They kind of have the entire market. They got a grasp on the entire thing.
And Tunç was Turkish. So I mean, really, if you throw that in there, and I'm not sure that those are people you should be throwing in together, don't quote me, but the Steelers have some East Asian offensive line history. How about that? West Asian? I don't know. Whatever.
That's also not an area of expertise, I guess. Just the
Asia, yeah. Just. I mean, I was a geography major a long time ago, so it should be an area of expertise. But that particular part of the world, maybe not my strength. He grew up in Georgia, and like I said, no star guy coming out of college. Love his work ethic. Badly timed injury. Seems like that's a thing the Steelers are kind of okay with, though. They've kind of been the team to take a chance on the injury guys. Listen, I think they could do a lot worse than Hunter Nourzad on day 3 in terms of both like his medium term upside as a starter and a guy that could probably play some this year.
I don't know, Alan. That's another guy that you just mentioned has played other positions besides center. He wasn't playing center since he was 6 years old, so I don't know if I want him. He's done other things besides play right at the pivot along the offensive line. And the other guy, Junior Colson, is another guy that we've mentioned on here a bit. They met with him at the combine a little bit when they were showing interest in some of the top linebackers, and we were making note of. What do you make of him as a player? Because I think he's one of the few guys. I don't know that I'm interested in spending that high of a pick on an off-ball linebacker as to what it would take to draft him. But at the same time, if you're looking for somebody in this class that is going to be able to stay on the field for 3 downs and also doesn't have the same injury concerns as, Peyton Wilson that we talked about yesterday, Junior Colson's probably the answer to that question.
Junior Colson is Haitian, so it's like the United Nations, and the third visitor is from England. So, an Iranian, a Haitian, and
that was actually the goal of today's meeting.
Walk into a bar on the South Side was the setup for today's visits. That's really funny. I didn't even think about that. I think Junior Colson is a very there's a hard way to say this. He's sort of the modern archetype of like a traditional linebacker, whereas like he's not a Landon Roberts, where he's just this like jacked up, guy that's going to kill you, but he does hit really hard. He's really fast. He can get from sideline to sideline. A really sound tackler. He probably, has some, growth areas. If I compare him to Devin Bush, another linebacker that came out of the same scheme, like I think a stronger guy, a tougher guy, a more physical guy, a better tackler, probably not like the same kind of athlete. I mean, certainly tested well, but not that kind of like crazy, twitchy kind of thing that you saw from Devin Bush. But I think a good compromise in terms of just what teams are looking for a linebacker. I'm with you though. I don't know where he fits in terms of their needs and the board. Like I think he's probably like a second round pick, third round pick. I think they're gonna go linebacker earlier than people think, but I would be pretty surprised if it's that early.
Okay, so you're talking maybe that second, third rounder at the earliest.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, but like it's a very thin linebacker class. Like there are not a lot. Like the Steelers have talked to all of the guys at the top of this group. There just aren't very many of them. Like we talked about Peyton Wilson, the idea that his injury could push him down the board. I could see that. Junior Colson, I think he's probably the Steelers have to take him at 51 if they want to get him. I just don't see that. And then I think Jeremiah Trotter and Cedric Gray are probably like third round guys. Maybe I really am not a big fan of Trotter's game.
Me either, man. I know he's got the NFL bloodlines, which I liked his dad as a player more than I liked him.
I really liked Cedric Gray at the Senior Bowl. Like I was obviously, covering Pitt. I'd seen some of North Carolina. I was sort of vaguely familiar with this game, but I really thought he had a nice Senior Bowl and did well for himself. Tommy Eichenberg is another guy who's dealt with an injury in the pre-draft process. Hasn't worked out very much from Ohio State, third or fourth round. Trevin Wallace from Kentucky, third or fourth round. Eddie Olfushio from Washington is a guy that I think the consensus on. I'm way higher on the consensus. I'd take him in the fourth round. I see him probably mostly going around 5. And Maris Liufau from Notre Dame, I really like too. Thought he had a nice Senior Bowl. As another guy there. Like there, even if you go down further, like Michael Barrett from Michigan and Steel Chambers, the other Ohio State linebacker. There's lots of guys way down in this class at linebacker that I think you can fill some depth with. So I don't really see the need to be jumpy. Like it's a thin class at the top, and I like the depth better. So I don't know why you'd be jumping to take a second round pick with a linebacker.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is I think there's a lot of guys down the board that can at least do one thing for you and bring something to the room. They're not gonna do like Peyton Wilson if he's able to stay healthy.
Curtis Jacobs from Penn State is another guy down there that I.
Yeah. Edge Cooper, who I feel like we haven't really touched on. Like I feel like the first piece of Steelers news that we got from like the offseason stuff was how much the Steelers liked him at the Shrine Bowl. Like that was kind of the first offseason thing that I remember happening. I was like, okay, guess I got to keep an eye on this guy come draft time. But really haven't talked about him a ton since then. And I think what's interesting with him is maybe as opposed to a lot of these guys, you could also use him. I know his first name's Edgerin. I just shortened it to Edge. You can use him off the edge. Like you could rush the passer off the edge with him, kind of that archetype. There's actually been some talk of that. Like, how is he going to be used? He's obviously not Micah Parsons, but will some teams utilize him in that way as like an off-ball guy, but also as an edge rusher?
Yeah, I think he brings some versatility that maybe increases his value. I mean, I think Peyton Wilson could do some of those same things, but Cooper doesn't have the injury concerns. I think he's an early day 2 guy. I probably don't see him getting out of the 40s. I think there's Green Bay at 41 has been a really popular projection for him. So
yeah, I was looking at Washington at 36, but then in free agency they got Frankie Louvu, so I don't know if that changes how high they would take a linebacker, just because they got Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn obviously was with Micah Parsons in Dallas, and again, I'm not saying he is Micah Parsons, but just wondering if a team would try to utilize him in similar fashions.
Yeah, I could see that. I do like Edgar Cooper as a player. I just think we kind of have to take him off the board for the Steelers realistically at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And the third guy that the Steelers had in today, very interesting one, Travis Clayton, like you mentioned, an English tackle who was part of the International Pathway Program. So that actually counts towards their 30, or no? This was just like a visit that they had along with the other two.
So the International Pathway Program has like players of all ages. Some of them are eligible for the draft and some of them are not. From what I can tell, this is a player that is eligible for the draft, and so he would count towards their top 30 visits. Now, when assuming that he doesn't get drafted, if the Steelers want to sign him, then those IPP players do not count against the 91 man offseason roster maximum. And if you put them on the practice squad, they don't count towards the practice squad maximum. If they make the 53-man roster, they do count towards the 53. So, but you can put that player on the practice squad and they can be there all year. And the Steelers have done this before. They had Christian Scotland Williamson was a tight end and had been a rugby player, spent, 3 or 4 years with the team on the practice squad back maybe like 17, 18, 19, 20, something like that. And so interesting. Always got to have depth, and the free practice squad spot makes that a pretty low risk maneuver.
Yeah. I'm just like the skinny on this guy just at a glance, 6'7", 300 pounds, 22 years old, obviously a rugby guy. A lot of these guys are also a boxer though, which is interesting.
I don't know that the Steelers have had a lot of boxers. I can't. I mean, Carlton Hasselrig was a wrestler, and now Le'Veon Bell, went the other way, right?
Right.
But that's interesting. He's a big boy. We'll see. Look, the Steelers had, I think you can, if you look at what they did with Alejandro Villanueva, if you look at what they're trying to do with Dylan Cook, I think if you have the length and the want to and the intelligence, you can mold a tackle. I think it is one of those positions where the frame matters most first. And there just are only so many guys that are 6'5" and taller with 35-inch arms. And if you can start with that, and you're a good athlete, you can make some things work. I mean, Jordan Mailata is sort of the archetype for that right now in the NFL with the Eagles. Done really well.
Everyone's chasing that. Yep.
Yeah, why not? I mean, I think compared to maybe what we've seen from non-traditional football players, like I think you're going to have more success building a lineman than you are finding an elite wide receiver or something like that. Like, it just seems like a position where some success in this area is at least possible.
Yeah. Okay. So I just want to kind of wrap up these 30 visits, look at the positions and maybe just like cast the net, go over that and see if we can try to, we've said this term a lot on here, but read the tea leaves as we get to the draft to see if we can find out any information. So 8 offensive tackles, 7 corners, 6 defensive linemen, 6 wide receivers, 4 centers, 2 guards, and 2 linebackers. That's from Nick Farabaugh, also of Steelers Now, saying that. So hope that information is correct. I would assume because it's Nick that it is. But Alan, what do we make of this? Does this give you, again, we've both talked about Mims, we talked about Barton yesterday. Any more insight or thought based off this information after the 30 visits into the direction the Steelers want to go?
Yeah, I think the big thing you do is you can kind of look at where there are clusters of visits compared to draft, like projected draft order, and you can kind of see like where they're looking at guys. And so,
let me
like,
pull up
example,
the big. I'll add the big board to the screen right now.
Start with linebacker because I think it's really interesting. Like, I don't think we're talking about linebacker like it's the top need of the Steelers. Bring up linebacker and get to the top there and look at all the interest in the top guys. You've got 2 top 30 visits. You've got Tomlin and Khan at 2 pro days. You've got 4 combine formals. You got the assistant coach at 3 pro days. You've got 5 guys they met with the Senior Bowl and 1 guy they met with the Shrine Bowl. Like, they've covered those top linebackers extensively. It's hard for me to imagine that if they're going to take a linebacker, it's not going to come, within that first group of, 10 or so names there. Now, on the other hand, if you look at defensive tackle, the interest is much more towards the middle of the pack here, right? Like just a combine formal with Byron Murphy. They were in the same. You're in the same. Go back.
Defensive tackle.
Yeah. Just a combine formal with Byron Murphy. No interest at all in Johnny Newton. Then it kind of picks up, right? Braden Fisk, Tavondre Sweat, Chris Jenkins, Ruke Orhoro, Michael Hall, Mason Smith, McKinley Jackson, getting down into Tyler Davis, Wingo, Boyd, Lee, Jefferson. Like, it seems like the D tackles are kind of the middle. Like, first round seems like that's out of the picture, but starting in the second with Fiske and from then on, that's possible. The wide receivers, it seems very clear that their interest in the wide receivers starts in the second round. I mean, even actually starts in the first round. And guys like A.D. Mitchell probably would have to be a first round pick if they're going to get him. Brian Thomas. And then, pretty consistent interest in through the second and third rounds, guys like Pearsall, Leggett, Corley, Luke McCaffrey, even as maybe a fourth rounder. Spread a little more thin across those rounds. Tackle, early. It's an impressive list. Fuaga, Fautanu, Mims, Guyton. They met with Latham twice. Fisher, Gonsalves, Rosengarten. The multiple interest guys are there. And center, Hunter Nourzad today and was the first center that is not one of the top guys that came in. So I don't know. It seems like they're gonna draft one of those three guys at the top of the list at center there somehow, some way. But it's interesting to see. And then, of course, look, I don't think that we thought that they were really gonna do this, but 0 tight ends, 0 running backs, 0 quarterbacks should tell us a lot about. I think we can almost take those positions off the board. Like I know they like Theo Johnson. I know there was some talk about them bringing in Penix and Dylan Johnson from Washington, but it sure doesn't seem like they're interested in those positions at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just one edge rusher, and it was Darius Robinson, who could maybe sort of kind of be a D tackle, like he's in betweener. So sure doesn't seem so. And then the last thing, we could talk about corners. It's no safeties. It's all corners that came in on the visits, Wiggins and Melton and Phillips, and they sent Tomlin and Kahn to Sanderstill and Lassiter and Kool-Aid and Wiggins and Arnold. And they did hit some of those safety, like Bullard and Smith are kind of hybrid guys, right? But the pure safeties of this class, the Cole Bishops, the Bo Braids, the Jaden Hicks, Kalen Bullocks, Malik Mustafa, not showing a ton of interest in those guys. After signing Deshaun Elliott, it seems like as far as pure traditional safeties, James Williams, they're Sonivaki, they're kind of set in terms of safety. So, look, they're showing us what their needs are, what they think their needs are, and it's early, center, and tackle. And then very quickly after that, it's wide receiver, D tackle, cornerback, and linebacker. And there isn't a whole lot other than that on this list.
And, we were kind of touching on this earlier, but like Alan, just from, the years covering the team and kind of tracking this stuff, how much of an indication has this been in the past in terms of what they do?
Yeah, the visits are a strong indication. It's not 100%, but look, we have it on the site there. You see the little logos, right? One for the combine, one for pro day, or for Con and Tomlin at a pro day, one for an assistant coach at a pro day, one for a top 30 visit, one for the Senior Bowl, one for the Shrine Bowl. I'll bet $100 that the Steelers' first round pick is going to have 2 logos next to his name. Like that's just what, like they're going to have at least that much interest in the guy, unless something crazy happens and like Olufashinu falls to 20, or Roma Dunze falls to 20. Like that's not happening. That's not even. That's not like I like Brian Thomas. Con and Tomlin were done with the owners' meetings. They did not go to the LSU Pro Day. They didn't even send Zach Azzani to the LSU Pro Day. They sent Carl Dunbar to scout the defensive lineman. They didn't bring him in for a top 30 visit. They just did the combine formal. I can't believe he's going to be the first round pick. I know Peter Schrager, very connected guy, marked him to the Steelers. I just cannot see it. I don't see wide receivers being good value for the Steelers in the first round anyway, but the interest level is just not there. And like, I know that the Con Tomlin at the pro day thing has very specifically been like the thing, the one that's the trend. It's been, 10, 12 years since they drafted a first round pick where the GM or the head coach was not at their pro day. I'm not sure that like I'm sold on that being the sole thing, but if you put together this interest level in the way that we have, you're going to find where most of these picks are coming from through these guys that they've talked to repeatedly.
I was just looking here, quick glance. Does any player have more than 3, or is 3 the most that any player has by them?
I don't think anybody has more than 3.
Okay. Yeah, that's the most that I've seen by 1. Okay. This is a resource for me as well, just as I go through this and try to do my own mock draft and stuff. But yeah, this is good stuff. I don't know what else do we got? What else do we got on these top 30 stuff, or 30 stuff? I'm sorry.
You can call it the top 30. I mean, I think that's pretty much.
I don't remember why that became a thing. It just recently became a thing.
Yeah, I don't know. There was like
I
some
don't even remember who
pushback from someone this offseason that like don't call.
Oh, I remember who it was now. The guy that runs the Senior Bowl, Jim Nagy.
Oh, Jim Nagy.
Yeah,
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if Jim doesn't want us to call him the top 30 visits, then let's just. Okay, are you on board with those positions that we talked about being the list? Are you on board with ignore quarterback, running back, tight end, edge rusher, safety until at least the 6th round? Are you saying like no chance anybody from any of those positions goes before that?
Yes. I just wish that didn't happen. I wish that the rest of the offseason didn't lay out this having to be the plan. If I'm saying, like, I'm trying to figure out the best way to put that into words. But like, I mean, I know we've mentioned it so many times, but it's like, how can they do anything else besides, attack offensive line early, get a receiver, get a slot corner? Like, these are things that they're not hope they can do. They have to do in the draft.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there are guys out there at some of those positions. I think they can make corner work if they don't get one, but like center, they're not, if they don't use a tackle in the 1st round, they're not going to get a guy who's going to play over Dan Moore this year. Like they're just not. And so, center, they got to get somebody that can start right away. Wide receiver, they got to get somebody who can start right away. That is a tough ask. And I think it really has, it has limited the flexibility where I think I'm with you. Honestly, like I even look at like I'm a little head scratching at their interest in linebackers because I think compared to the other needs, like I would push that one way down. Like unless maybe, Cole Holcomb is injured worse than the Steelers have let on.
Ask you.
Or that I have. I mean, look, he was walking in January. Omar said they expect him to make a full recovery. I don't know, but I mean, they got Patrick Queen. They got Landon Roberts had an awesome year last year. You still got Mark Robinson in the room, even if you don't necessarily trust him. He's still at least a guy. Play some special teams and be around. Would you consider linebacker or defensive tackle to be a bigger need? I think that's an interesting question. I think they're probably sort of equal in one way in that you kind of one guy, Queen at linebacker and Benton at D tackle that you feel good about sort of for the foreseeable future for multiple years. For me, the difference is, you can find linebackers as the Steelers shown by getting Roberts and Holcomb for pretty reasonably on the open market. The Steelers are paying a whole heck of a lot to get pretty average production out of Larry Ogunjobi. Defensive tackle is where you have to kind of draft them unless you really want to pay them. But I think I would rather draft a D tackle than a linebacker, but where do you rank those needs for you? And are those clearly sort of second tier needs for you?
Yeah. I mean, full agreement. Defensive tackle is a position where I said, like, anytime if I feel like I don't want to say like a blue chipper, but like too good of a talent to pass up, I'm going to have a hard time saying to do so, regardless of if it is like a top need. So, if that's just the way that the board fell and they took one earlier than I would have hoped that they would, just because of it falling that way, then like so be it. But defensive tackle definitely above linebacker for me. I mean, we've talked about obviously in the short term, maybe feeling like some pieces are there, but you mentioned it. Like Keanu Benton's really the only guy is like a long-term piece along that defensive tackle spot. And I just feel like the trenches up front are more important than off-ball linebacker. I love the addition of Patrick Queen, but I don't expect they're going to, continue to throw money like that at the position. I just don't think this is the year to do a high draft pick there either. Like you mentioned Holcomb and Landon Roberts, but even like Quan Alexander before injury, like last year they put together a veteran linebacker group that was very good when they were able to be on the field together for, pennies on the dollar.
Yeah. So, okay. So if we're in agreement, then like day 3, top of day 3, let's play some. Would you rather? Would you rather a Mason Smith or a Christian Boyd or a Tyler Davis or a Gabe Hall, or would you rather, Cedric Gray, Trevin Wallace, Tommy Eichenberg? Like to me, it's not even close. That like the players that are like if we say those top 4 picks, unless somebody crazy falls, these 2 needs are not going to make it into the top 4. Like that, they're going to have to go tackle, center, wide receiver. I mean, I guess maybe 98's possible. All right, so top 3, and then maybe we'll include like Trotter and.
Well, I was just saying, is there a possibility
Michael
that
Hall.
we're talking about like a Peyton Wilson slide like that because of the medicals, and like you
Possible.
saw with Darnell Washington.
I mean, yeah, if somebody slides, fine. But if you're just looking at like drafting board value, and you're looking at late 3rd or 4th round picks, 98 or 119, I think I like the board a lot better at defensive line in terms of who I expect to be. That there is a big. We talk about clusters all the time. There's a cluster of defensive linemen starting with about pick 100 that has a half a dozen guys that I think I would take with that 4th round pick. And I just don't like that. That's more than there are linebackers in the entire class. I like it's, I have a hard time seeing where linebacker fits.
I think Mason Smith is an awesome fit. Like, reminds me, a lot of people have comped his, and I'm not like a huge comp guy, but like Brett Coleman pointed this out, so I was kind of looking for it when watching him, and I saw a lot of the similar stuff. Stephon Tuitt, so I think that he would be a great scheme fit specifically for them. Christian Boyd, we've talked about a ton, and I love him. Michael Hall, I mean, if he fell for whatever reason in 98, that's like a no-brainer for me. I'm trying to put together like a big board of my own for the first time, and he nearly cracked my top 50. So like if he ends up being a late 3rd round pick, that value would be too good. Out of the linebackers you mentioned that would possibly fall there, the only one that I would really consider at that point is Cedric Gray. But again, you're talking about a guy that probably is like a specialized guy. Like I think that he could play in obvious passing downs, but I question, where he would fit in from an early down perspective anyway on this football team.
I think he's like the replacement to Quan Alexander, right? That's what you're getting with Cedric Gray, which is fine, especially for a 4th round pick. But I think all these D tackles have like starter upside, right? Like, I mean, maybe not all of them, but a lot of these guys, like Michael Hall, could be a really good player. But even like the guys that are farther down the list, like a Gabe Hall from Baylor and a Jordan Jefferson from LSU, like these are good players.
Tyler Davis certainly has the pedigree. I mean, he was supposed to be the guy at Clemson.
Tyler Davis feels very much like a Steelers kind of pick. I really high pedigree athlete, played big time football in college. Like, if you look at, some of their, like they are often picking the not the best player from the best team, right? That's like a long time sort of Steelers trend.
But like the 3 that they had 30s with, Braden Fisk, Christian Boyd, and Mason Smith. Oh, I'm sorry, Logan Lee was a 30 too. Okay, missed that one. But those first 3 that I said, like I feel like those guys fit the Steelers the most. If they were to take one, those would be my 3 guesses from this entire group anyway. Like even without knowing the 30, if that was eliminated from this, those 3 just felt like Steelers to me.
Yeah, I like them a lot. That's for sure. I really like these D tackles, and I think they got to get one. Like I think, Dean Lowry probably does not have the same pass rush ability that they lost when they lost Armon Watts. Yeah. So, I mean, I think they got to find it. Now, like Christian Boyd isn't going to bring that. And, so it depends on which one you get. But I think they can find that in this draft class.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Anything else?
Yeah. So we were talking yesterday off air about what we want to do for Thursday. And I want to throw it out there for the audience. Just chime in. Do you want an episode to come out at 5:00 on Thursday, like normal, or do you want something earlier in the day? And then, I know you're doing a big show with your around the 412 brothers, but I was thinking maybe we would do it live would be interesting too. I just, there's not a lot of value in a podcast that's going to come out at 5 when the draft is at 8 and everything we say is going to be useless in a couple hours. But we haven't done a lot of live shows, so maybe that would be the time to do one. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we want your guys' input. You're the ones that make the show what it is. So let us know what you think, and we'll go from there. But yeah, we can't make a decision until we get that feedback. So let us know in the comments as always, and also questions for future episodes. But Alan, tell the people where they can find you until then.
At @Saunders_PGH, PGH Steelers Now, SteelersNow.com. Wrote about the demise of the Steel Curtain roller coaster. It's closing for the entire 2024 season.
Is that an omen for the season? I don't like that.
Only the biggest news at SteelersNow.com. None of that fluff you get at other outlets. And that's I don't. Are you a roller coaster guy?
I love roller coasters, but that one I was a bit skeptical from the jump with that one specifically.
I'm a big fan of that roller coaster. I think it's very good. I really enjoy it. I
so the experience, yes, but just in terms of and Mitch Nagy pointed out the structure of it as well. Like he predicted back in 2019, 5 years ago, that this thing would have the issues that it would, which is wild. Go look at his Twitter time, or I'm sorry, I said Twitter, X timeline, and you will see that he somehow predicted in 2019 that this ride specifically would have the issues that it would.
That's nuts.
Yeah. And he's a roller coaster enthusiast. I think it still even says that in his bio. If not, it used to. But yeah,
maybe we'll have to have him on when we go back to our rotating cast of friends, which I think we're going to get back to probably at some point later in the off season.
There's going to be another dead period, so yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we'll have Mitch Nagy on just to talk about roller coasters.
And maybe at some point, sometime in this universe or another, Tyler Weech can finally come on the show, but who knows if that will ever happen.
I'm not promising that.
Yeah,
I was recorded an episode of Locked On Steelers with Chris Carter and did again tease Chris Carter return to the podcast. So I have to get that going.
It's been a while.
I haven't done it in a while, so we'll have Carter on eventually. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We'll have somebody else on next week, and I won't say anything more than that for the time being.
All right.
Who I will also see this weekend. If you are going to the Pirate games at all this weekend, I will be there as well. So hit me up for that. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell here. Hit us in the comments. Like we said, let us know what you're thinking ahead of next Thursday's draft, what you think we should do for the episode. Should we still put out the normal episode at the same time, or how do you want us to do that? Should we try to do something live? Let us know your thoughts on that, as well as questions for a future episode. Like, subscribe, leave us a 5-star review. If you were listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from, you can find us over there. For Alan Saunders and myself, you'll find me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH. And until next time, thanks for jumping in and taking another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.